They sealed the bunker with 3 meters of reinforced concrete. Then they welded the door. Then they buried it under 40 tons of gravel and pre-tied the records never existed. But concrete breathes, and what grew in that darkness learned to breathe with it. I'm holding the file right now. Folder 4047 Gamma 12. The manila is so old it feels like skin, brittle, yellowish skin that might flake apart if I'm not careful. There's a brown ring on the cover. Coffee, probably, from whatever exhausted clerk processed this in 1983. Or maybe it's something else. The staples have rusted through the paper, leaving orange wounds that weep when I turn the pages. The thumbnail they used to classify this. It still makes my stomach turn. Just 2 words, handwritten in the margin. Concrete cries. Let me read you what I found. The facility was called Object 19, which tells you absolutely nothing, and that was the point. 50 kilometers northwest of Chelyabinsk, buried in the kind of forest where the trees grow too close together and the ground never fully thaws. It was designed as a storage site for experimental reactor components. The failed ones, the ones that got too hot or too strange or too alive. The Soviets built it in 1967 with the kind of concrete they thought would outlast the isotopes. They were wrong. The first report came in March of 1982. A maintenance engineer named Volkov, first name redacted, they always redacted the first names, submitted a routine inspection log that wasn't routine at all. I'm looking at it now. The handwriting is controlled, professional, but there are these little tremors in certain words. The T, in temperature, has a tail that shakes. Observed discoloration on the interior wall of storage chamber 4. Gray-green patches approximately 2 to 3 centimeters in diameter. Texture resembles clay when touched, but samples crumbled to fine powder. Recommend further analysis. Clay, that's what they called it. Project Clay became the official designation 6 weeks later, after the patches spread to cover 40 square meters in the powder. The powder started moving on its own. I need you to understand something about Soviet bunkers. They didn't fail. The concrete they used was mixed with such paranoid precision that Western engineers still study the formulations. Aggregate ratios tested to 4 decimal places. Rebar placement calculated by teams of mathematicians. These structures were built to contain nuclear fire, to hold back the heat of dying stars. But this was different. The second report is where the file starts to smell wrong. Not literally, though there is a faint odor to these pages, something mineral and damp, but wrong in the way the language fractures. Dr. Anatoly Resnick, the facility's chief materials scientist, writes like a man trying to convince himself. Initial microscopic analysis reveals a structure inconsistent with known fungal morphology. Sample exhibits characteristics of both biological and crystalline organization. Growth pattern follows concrete stress fractures with apparent intentionality. Temperature in affected areas measures 4 to 7 degrees below ambient. Humidity increased by 300% despite ventilation protocols. Apparent intentionality. That phrase appears 14 times in the subsequent reports. It's the phrase scientists use when they can't say what they're actually thinking, when the data points towards something impossible, and they need to wrap it in academic distance. The fungus, if it was a fungus, was following the weak points in the concrete structure. Not randomly, not spreading like mold in a damp basement. It was reading the architecture like a blueprint, finding every hairline fracture, every place where the aggregate didn't quite bond, every microscopic failure point in the engineering. And it was eating. By May, storage chamber 4 was compromised. The walls had developed what Resnick called porous degeneration. Sections of concrete that had turned soft, crumbly, more like compressed ash than stone. When workers tried to chip away the infected areas, the material beneath was laced with thread-like structures. Gray-green filaments, thin as spider silk, that penetrated 30 centimeters into solid concrete. The facility director ordered the chamber sealed. They used emergency protocols designed for radiation containment. Steel plate welded over the entrance, every ventilation duct sealed with lead, electromagnetic locks engaged on systems that had never been locked before. It bought them 11 days. I'm trying to read this next section carefully because the file here, it's been edited. Not censored with black ink like usual, but edited. Someone went through with a different typewriter. You can see where the letter E sits slightly higher, and changed specific words. Changed spread to migrated, changed consumed to altered, changed growing to manifesting. The language is trying to hide something. On May 23rd, workers in storage chamber 6, 2 chambers away from the sealed room, reported a smell. The description makes me want to put this folder down and walk away. Wet earth after rain, but colder. And underneath something like metal oxidizing in real time. By May 25th, the gray-green patches appeared in chamber 6. Not small spots this time. Entire walls, floor to ceiling, covered in what the report calls clay-like substrate. Substrate. As if giving it a scientific name would make it less terrifying. The patterns were geometric. Perfect hexagons, each about the size of a playing card, tiled across the concrete surface. In the center of each hexagon, I'm reading directly here. Observed structures resembling mature fruiting bodies, but composed of aggregate material identical to surrounding concrete. Samples fracture under examination, releasing fine particulate that remained suspended in air for extended periods. They were breathing concrete dust. The fungus had learned to sporulate using the bunker's own building material. Dr. Resnick's notes from this period read like a man coming apart. The technical language slips. One entry just says, "It knows the building better than we do. How does it know?" The decision to evacuate came on June 2nd. Not because of the spreading contamination, though by then 4 chambers were affected, but because of the sounds. This detail is buried in a maintenance log, not the scientific reports. A technician named Petrov wrote, "Night shift, 02:30 hours. Heard series of low-frequency pulses emanating from sealed chambers. Intervals suggest pattern, but translation unknown. Sound similar to structural settling, but occurs in response to personnel movement in adjacent corridors." The bunker was clicking at them. I want to pause here because this is where the file fractures isn't the right word, where it opens up into something deeper. There are 3 pages stapled in backward, as if someone grabbed them in a hurry and shoved them into the folder wrong. The text is different, not typed, but written in blue ink, slanted heavily to the right. It's a personal account. No signature, but the handwriting matches Dr. Resnick's earlier notes. I went back. After the evacuation order, after they closed the access road, I went back alone. I had to see. Chamber 4, the original site, I opened it, the steel plate. The fungus had grown through the weld seams, not broken through, grown through, molecule by molecule, incorporating the iron into its structure. Inside, the walls were gone. I don't mean destroyed, I mean gone, replaced. The entire chamber had become this lattice, gray-green cathedral of threads and nodules, still holding the shape of the room, but transformed into something that breathed when I moved. The air was so cold I could see my breath, but the temperature gauge read normal. I touched it. God help me, I touched the wall. It was soft. Concrete shouldn't be soft, shouldn't yield like clay, shouldn't feel warm when everything else is freezing. And when I pulled my hand away, the sentence doesn't finish. There's a smudge on the page, as if the pen dragged while the hand was shaking. 3 lines down. It kept the impression. My handprint. Still there when I left, pressed into the wall like the wall was waiting for it, like it wanted to remember what I felt like. The official termination protocol was implemented June 9, 1982. I've seen these protocols before. They're usually brief, bureaucratic, designed to erase problems efficiently. This one runs 17 pages. They tried fire first. Industrial flamethrowers, the kind used for clearing ice from Arctic runways. Temperature readings hit 200 degrees Celsius in some sections. The concrete should have shattered, exploded from the thermal shock. Instead, the fungus adapted. The report tries to be clinical. Exposure to extreme heat resulted in temporary cessation of growth, followed by rapid regeneration exhibiting increased thermal tolerance. New growth demonstrates crystalline structures consistent with high-temperature ceramic formation. It learned. In hours, it learned to survive fire by becoming something that lived in fire. They tried chemical agents next. Acids that could dissolve metal. Alkaline solutions that broke down organic matter at the molecular level. Each attempt bought them days, sometimes hours, before new growth emerged, now resistant to whatever they'd used. By June 20th, Object 19 had become a laboratory. Not their laboratory, its laboratory. The fungus was teaching itself chemistry using them as the curriculum. The final report is dated July 3rd, 1982. It's signed by someone so high up in the bureaucracy that the name itself is redacted. Just a blur of black ink where the signature should be. The language is definitive, absolute, the kind of prose that closes doors permanently. Object 19 has been sealed according to Protocol Chernaya Kniga. All personnel have been reassigned. All documentation has been consolidated into Archive Gamma. The facility is to be listed as decommissioned due to structural failure. Any future inquiry regarding Object 19 is to be directed to this office exclusively. Protocol Chernaya Kniga, the Black Book Protocol. I've seen it referenced twice before, both times for situations where the problem wasn't solved, just buried deep enough that it became someone else's problem. Someone in a different decade, a different generation. But there's one more page. It's loose, not stapled, not bound. Just tucked into the back of the folder like an afterthought. It's a geological survey report from 1989, 7 years after the closure. Some routine mapping project that happened to pass near the site. The surveyor notes an anomaly. Subsurface density measurements indicate unexpected voids in geological formation northwest of marker 447. Pattern inconsistent with natural cave systems. Structures appear regular, repeating at intervals suggesting artificial construction. Depth 40-60 meters. Recommend further investigation. They buried Object 19 under 40 tons of gravel. The facility was 15 meters underground. Something had dug deeper. I keep coming back to Dr. Resnick's handwritten note. That image of him standing in the transformed chamber, watching his handprint hold its shape in the living concrete. There's something about that detail that hollows me out. The fungus kept his touch, remembered it, preserved it like a fossil in stone, except the stone was still alive and still learning. What do you call an organism that eats concrete and rewrites itself to survive whatever you throw at it? That responds to human presence, that maps the architecture of bunkers built to contain the worst human creation, that grows deeper when you bury it. The file doesn't have an answer. The file just has measurements, observations, the documentation of a failure so complete that the only solution was to pretend it never happened. But here's what keeps me awake. Concrete is everywhere. The foundation of every building, every road, every structure we've built to hold back the chaos. It's the material we trust to be dead, inert, stable forever. Object 19 proved that concrete can be colonized, that something can learn to live in the spaces between the aggregate and the cement, in the microscopic failures of our engineering, in the dark places underground where we store our mistakes. They sealed the bunker in 1982, 43 years ago. I wonder how deep it's grown since then. I wonder what it's learned in 4 decades of darkness, feeding on Soviet concrete, adapting to the pressure of 40 meters of earth, spreading through geological formations that connect to other formations, other structures, other bunkers that riddle the Ural Mountains like a network of artificial caves. I wonder if it's still just fungus. The folder is closed now. I'm putting it back in the archive box, in the climate-controlled room where we keep the files that don't fit anywhere else. The staples have left rust stains on my fingers, little orange marks that won't quite wash off. Before I seal this away, there's one last detail. It's written on the inside back cover of the folder in pencil, so faint I almost missed it. Just 4 words in that same slanted handwriting. The concrete is breathing. I don't know who wrote that. I don't know when they wrote it. Before the closure, after, decades later, when someone else opened this file and felt what I'm feeling now. But I know they were right, because somewhere northwest of Chelyabinsk, under 40 tons of gravel and 3 meters of reinforced concrete that was supposed to last forever, something is still growing, still learning, still remembering the shape of Dr. Resnick's hand pressed into its body like a promise, like it's waiting for someone else to come back and touch the walls. This is Red Archive Stories. I'm Ian Cardwell. Some documents shouldn't be opened, but someone has to carry the weight of knowing they exist.